I mean, if somebody ever plays a poor WCC move, then maybe. There hasn't really been a bad move yet. I mean, so today we had our third black, our third Rosalimo with Magnus Carlsen. I am very, very surprised he's continued to stick with this opening. And I thought that the play today by Fabi was a lot better. As per normal, I thought Carlsen handled it very well. Maybe Carlsen really did have this prepared. I mean, he probably did. He's probably seen everything that's possible in this line. But I thought the move B4 today was very, very interesting by Fabi. I thought that was a good find. It's typical in positions where there's a bishop on or something, some kind of a target on C5. I expect that Fabi thought the pawn was going to take. So I don't know if Magnus came up with that on the spot or this is some line. I really don't know those things. It was a news flash to me, man. I did not see B4 coming. So it was very interesting. Unfortunately, the game ended up, both players resorted back to their, styles, to who they are. No matter what preparation you do, we're human beings. We are who we are, people. And these guys are going to come back to who they are and what their style is always. It got them this far. They're not going to change who they are over some line somebody just came up with last night. So they're going to come up with a line that they feel is interesting. And if they get in any trouble, they're going to revert back to who they are. That's what happened in this game. There was one chance, maybe, I feel, where Fabi could have struck. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's just a dead draw. I don't know. But I do feel like, and I think that, I didn't get a chance to watch much of the commentary. I came in pretty late because I was working. But I do feel like it seemed like the commentators seemed to address that issue as well. I had a slightly different move order. But anyways, we'll get to that point in a minute and we'll take a look and we can see what's going on. What's up, RPD? How you doing? RPD was like, I don't know, man. You seemed like you were drunk on the Kingly show yesterday, man. Talking about bitches and yo, what's up, bitches? And I don't know what that was all about, man. That was either RPD was drunk or somebody hacked his account. But at any rate, RPD, nice to have you in the chat. I gotta eat in front of you guys. I feel really bad. I'm starving. I've been working for hours. Let's get into this game, guys. I'm gonna turn off that computer. So e4, c5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5, a third Rosalimo. I was surprised to see Carlsen play this. I did not expect this, guys. It's like, it's not really a bagel. It's just like a bun, like a bakery bun, and with pizza sauce on it. That's basically all it is. But it's pretty tasty. It's tasty and fresh. It's got a little bit of cheese on there. I mean, some people have wondered whether the Rosalimo was going to get some more play with Carlsen playing this, and maybe it will because for just the amateur, the ordinary player who doesn't know a lot of lines, they're going to get a lot of review. They're going to get to see a lot of interesting positions and feel like they're walking away from this with some knowledge on how to play this, what types of endgames it's going to get into, okay? But I don't know that a whole series of draws, fairly easy draws, are going to necessarily make people want to rush out and play this opening. And actually, the Rosalimo is quite aggressive, and if you don't believe me, go check out ChessCoach.net and go find some of his games. He's got some stunning Rosalimos, much more exciting than the games we're seeing. The opening today was very exciting. We're going to get into that. G6, castles, bishop to g7, rook over, e5. So this is the same kind of stuff as what we've seen in other games. There was the one game where Magnus tried an early queen to c7, and I think that in that line the difference was that here in this line, White was playing d3, and then maybe now after queen to c7. Rook to here, and then now e5. So it was some kind of a line like this. And also we were also seeing that the bishop was taking in the other lines, right? So here we were expecting even, so bishop and pawn. We were expecting to see bishop takes, pawn takes, d3, bishop to g7, castles, and here queen to c7, and now on rook to e1, then e5. So this kind of a style. And that's Harlem coming in with a guest host. Hey CLJR, how you doing, man? Just my street trash talking from middle-class small English town. Not sure what came over me. Yeah, I was pretty sure you got hacked there, RPD. I was like 99% sure you got hacked. Easy draw, spoiler, check out the king this game. It actually was surprisingly an easy draw, Veritwitch. I know it seems like it wasn't to the untrained eye, but it wasn't. It wasn't what it looked like. It wasn't dangerous to players of this caliber. There was absolutely nothing in multiple drawing lines. So this line didn't pan out. So instead we got into this line. So this time Fabi decides, you know what? I'm just going to castle. I'm going to castle, and I'm not going to take that knight right away. I've got a different plan in mind. Why give up this bishop if you don't have to? So he decides to get into this line. So bishop to g7, rook over to e1, and e5. So we got into the same kind of regular positions, except that the bishop has not taken the knight. Now, whether bishop takes knight is playable in this line, I'm not sure. I feel like the problem is that this queen is a little bit cramped in. So if there's a chance for white to strike, it's now. And that's why I think Fabi chose this line. He had this move prepared. b4. b4, a move I'm not familiar with at all in this position. It could be some main line, I don't know. But I've never seen it before. So quite an interesting position. CLJR says it's a Benko gambit for white. It does have similar properties. In fact, I suspect that Fabi hoped, or at least, I don't know if he thought it was going to happen, but I'm sure he hoped for this move. And here I think a3 is quite a dangerous move. You might wonder, why does white want to give up a pawn? Well, he's hoping to make some, attacks on the long diagonal here like this. And even on a move like knight to here, I feel like already bishop to d6 is a real pain in black's side. This is another possibility of pushing the pawn forward, but let's stick with this one for a second. Let's see pawn takes and bishop takes. If, for example, a6 now, bishop to d6 is definitely coming, and the rook can't even come over to b8. This is a really annoying bishop. You probably almost have to play bishop to f8 here. d4 is going to come at some point in time. The pin is on with the rook. This is a very annoying position for black. Let's stick it in the computer for a quick second. Let's suggesting knight to d4, but it does like white's position. It feels like white has a little edge here. For being down a pawn, it gives you an indication of how much better white's position is. That white's position overall is better, even though he's down a pawn. He has a pawn and a half of compensation here. If the pawn goes forward and the pawn takes here, white's still going to be able to get bishop to b2 and d4 in at some point in time. So basically, white is going to get some pretty easy and natural play with a little bit of aggression, and I don't know that this knight has a lot of good squares to go to. So it's kind of fixed, so you didn't really have to take this. If you really get desperate with a6, you can probably bring the bishop all the way back to f1, and if you have to, you can regroup it on the king side. Hey, what's going on, man? DJ Allen on? How you doing? Wolf's in the house. Gary Fang? Is Gary Fang in here too? Oh, Gary Fang said b4 was just dubious? Really? That's interesting that Gary Fang would say that, because I thought Gary really liked his gambits. So, in this line, I feel like definitely pawn takes pawn is a big problem for black. Black does not want to play that move. And that's the reason why I think Carlsen chose the way that he did, which might have surprised Fabi, or maybe it was just not the line that he was hoping for. He played knight takes b4. Right, RPD says, these grandmasters don't understand the basics of opening play. Exactly, right? So knight takes, maybe the way that Magnus played this indicates that he did know this line. So bishop to b2, he wants to get that in quickly. Contest the bishop. If black does nothing, c3 and d4 are possibilities. So a6, I still feel like this bishop could run backwards. Let me just see something here. Yeah, it's important to note that that this move b4, black does have to do something about it. Like, he can't just play a move like d6, for example. Because if pawn takes and pawn takes, bishop takes and pawn takes, and then maybe like bishop to a3, white succeeded in doing what you want to do against the Rosalima, which is to completely decimate black's pawns on the queen side. This is a way better version for white than any that we've seen in this match so far. This pawn is in serious trouble. All of these pawns are extremely weak, and there's even a static pawn on e5 blocking the powerful bishop. So this is a really good position. Let's put it in Mr. Silicon, see what Mr. Silicon says. Mr. Silicon says 1.3 pawn advantage for white. All right. So black can't really sit on that. So we've got knight takes, bishop b2, a6, and a3. A clever move. It's the correct move. I'm not sure it's a move that everybody would find. I think probably most people would move that bishop. I probably would consider moving that bishop. But a3 is a clever little move. So white wants to get rid of the target rook on a1 so that there's never any more threats of having this diagonal open up, which is always a problem for white. How do we get you up higher on the Twitch chess list, says Swing Kidda. I don't know, tell your friends, I guess. Tell your friends to come watch the review. It's not been very good for my numbers. I was on 22 average viewers. I'm down to 19, and it's going to be lower again after today. But that's okay. I enjoy it. I enjoy it, folks. I'm also eating on stream, which is not good, but I'm starving to death. I've been working for like, I don't know how many hours straight. I just finished my lessons and got straight to work on my setup for the stream. So I'm stuffing my face, which is not good for viewership. But we'll get there. We're doing good. We got a lot of my good friends in here. I don't know what the live viewers number that you guys are seeing, but lots of cool peeps in. Harlem Knight, Kingley's in the house. Everybody's in here, man. Ray Clay's in. So this is a way, way more exciting opening than what we've seen in the other Rosalimos. Again, I wasn't there from the start of the game. I didn't get to hear the comments for the first hour and a half. I came in a little bit late because I was working. So I don't really know what they had to say. I don't know how Carlsen looked. I didn't see him live while he was playing. But I feel like he's maybe, I don't know. I'm not sure, but I feel like he might have been a little ruffled by this move and had to come up with some of these moves on the fly. Maybe I'm totally wrong. He is the world champion. Maybe he knows these positions stone cold. I don't know. But his play demonstrates to me that maybe he was a little bit uncomfortable. So rook takes and bishop takes, and now comes the move d6. The difference between playing d6 now and playing d6 earlier is now on pawn takes and pawn takes. The pawn's not going to take back, by the way. But if on pawn takes and pawn takes, now at least there's no like bishop takes c6 messing up my pawns. So now at least in this line the pawns are all safe. The reason why this move's probably not very good is because bishop takes. Knight to here, and then, well, I'm not sure, whatever. Some move. I'm not sure if d4 comes next, or if he just takes this and plays the e-pawn push. I'm not sure exactly what's going to come next. Probably, maybe he just still plays queen to e2. At any rate, I don't think that's what happened. I think he did pawn takes and then come knight to e7. This is a clever little move. These kind of moves are real difficult for a lower-rated player to find. Why would you just give him that pawn, right? But he's happy to get rid of this backwards pawn, if he can. So queen to e2 with thematic idea. I like to play this move much earlier when I play the Rosalimo and or the Moscow variation. The idea is you can either come up here to the b5 square, or if necessary, you can come to the c4 square, where you can make operations on the f-pawn. JJ, hey, JJ's in the house. I gotta do my JJ dub, guys. I gotta do my dub for JJ because I don't have his emote. So there we go. Boom! This one's got my head up over my elbow. I've usually got my head tucked down into there. But anyways, there's my dab emote for JJ. So queen to e2. So White's going to continue his plan. He wants to mess up all of these pawns on the queen side. He's got control over the long diagonal, and black still has some development issues. There's a pawn on e5 blocking the bishop on g7. So white's feeling pretty comfortable, and he's still in the mood for attacking here right now. The pawn goes forward, which is probably the only move. Bishop to here, he's just going to do pawn takes. Queen here, I'm also going to just do pawn takes. Bishop to here, I've got queen takes as check. So I don't really think there's any other move. I mean, like, what is he gonna, like, he can't even push this pawn because of the, he can't capture, same problem because of this e-pawn. So I think it's really probably an only move. And then comes queen to c4. You might have expected here that he was going to play the move queen to b5. But now in this line, black's going to be able to probably get his bishop into the play after queen here and the bishop move. I feel like maybe this is a little bit less clear. I'm not sure if this is the exact line that would have taken place or not. Is that bad for black? What happens on queen to b5 here? I did shave Swinkita. I know I had to do it someday. Kingly is slowly growing the soul patch back, so I was just filling in until Kingly got his soul patch back. You know, so I feel like I've done my job, and I had to shave again someday. Yeah, the move b5 I think Veritwich is the only move because I don't see any other way. Because not only losing this pawn. Losing this pawn is going to be bad, but it continues to make operations against the king. So let's say if castles, for example, and queen takes, what are you down here? Like, you're just down a pawn for nothing. And there's still no real sensible way to take this, because on doing so, I'm going to be able to get your e-pawn and trade off your dangerous bishop if possible. So you're just down a pawn here for nothing with a bad position. See what I mean, Veritwich? Yeah, right, Kingly? Kingly knows what's up, man. Kingly took a break from the soul patch there, but he's back. He's back. Okay, so the b-pawn push. The queen over to c4. I'm still not quite sure what happens after queen to b5. I just feel instinctively that this is wrong. But if I'm being honest, I really don't know exactly why. Maybe does he just play knight to c6? And now he's guarding the b-pawn and the e-pawn. So now maybe he could take this someday, or at least he doesn't have to worry about it as much. Maybe it's just as simple as that. But queen c4 is a thematic move. Queen c4 is a thematic move. Now in the line of knight here. Are we playing d4 or are we playing c3 here? Maybe that's still a better move. I wonder what Mr. Silicon thinks. Mr. Silicon, what do you think of knight to c6? It does like d4 immediately and start breaking things open. So it's just a little slow. It's a little slow. There's a rook on the e-file. There's a queen on c4, there's a bishop on the longest diagonal on the board, and black's king is still in the middle, so it's a little bit slow, I think is all that it's saying, but it's not so bad. There's a lot of lines here that are probably playable by black. It actually likes queen to c7, which is interesting, pinning the queen on, we'll just turn that off again, pinning the queen on c4 is kind of an interesting concept. That is an interesting move. But I still feel like d4 is playable here. But at least in this line, there's a knight on e7, so there's an extra piece in between the king and the rook. One error and it all crumbles. Yeah, that's true, Veritwich, but I mean, there's a lot of different paths that black could take here to get an equal or a good position. Hey, KBCon, how you doing? So, I mean, you know, yes, it's true that me or you for sure we're going to lose. I mean, if I was playing this game, I would lose this game in like 20 moves. Or something to Carlsen, he would just slaughter me. It would be pathetic. But in the hands of these guys, I feel like they have a good sense of what's going on. So queen a5 is an interesting idea. Hits the bishop on a1. There's not a good place for the knight to go temporarily. All those places are covered. So here we have the move pawn takes. I mean, it's an interesting idea. The basic idea is that if the queen takes the bishop, then I have pawn takes pawn attacking the bishop on c8, and black can't even castle because he'd be going through a checked square on f8. So that's the concept behind that. Also, knight to c3 would be attacking the queen with power, so you don't want to get into that kind of stuff. So bishop to e6, once again an only move, taking away the target and directly attacking the queen. I wondered here if this pawn push was interesting, but maybe he just takes it back with the bishop and everything's fine. The concept was just to like develop the bishop with tempo, so I feel like probably he can just simply take this. So that probably doesn't work. So bishop to e6, queen to c7. He's going to get rid of that powerful piece, a direct threat of mate, so there's no time to take on a1 anymore. I've got the YouTube hip-hop mix on right now, guys. So if you put on some song requests, we are going to get to that in a little while, but just not at this exact moment in time. So keep those song requests coming, and then we'll have a nice cue when we get to that point. So while we're looking at this position, guys, I'm going to have a little bite, and I'm going to tell you a little story. I like to tell you guys stories every time I do my little post-game. I should probably do like a fadeaway scene or something cool, you know, to make this interesting. And if you guys haven't noticed in my background, I have this picture up in my background, which is the Linear World Champions, including some of the better players from their time. Like down in the bottom left corner, we've got Philidor. Up in the top right corner, we also have a sketch of Philidor playing chess. And beside that one, up in the top right, we have a picture of Paul Morphy. A picture of Paul Morphy playing some games, and that might be against Zukertort. Johann Zukertort. But at any rate, those were guys who were clearly the best players of their era. But in the bottom right-hand corner, we have Wilhelm Steinitz, the official first world champion. He beat Adolf Anderssen in 1966, and then in 1866 and 1886. Sorry, I'm getting my dates wrong here, but in 1886, up here in the middle on the left-hand side, you see him on the right playing against Emanuel Lasker on the left, and that was 100% certainly the first. Oh no, that's not even the right one. Anyways, I guess I don't have the right picture up. Shoot. Well, I'm trying to tell you guys this story, but anyways, it was against Zukertort that Steinitz won his official World Championship match. There was a clause in the contract saying that this was for the World Chess Championship, which Steinitz won, becoming the first official World Chess Champion. Now, we've looked at Steinitz. There he is. Oh, there's some pictures. So the one on the bottom right is him playing against Zukertort. The one on the left is him and Anderssen. Anderssen being the clearly best player in the world at that time, with the exception of Paul Morphy, who had retired from chess. After Steinitz, he was beaten by Emanuel Lasker. There's the picture of him playing against Lasker. And then Lasker was subsequently beaten by Jose Raul Capablanca of Cuba. And there's a picture up in the top left of him playing against Lasker. Today we're going to take a look at Alexander Alekhine. Alexander Alekhine was the fourth linear world chess champion, taking the title from Capablanca. I believe it was 1927. Capablanca was indomitable. He once went 8 consecutive years without losing a single chess game, playing the world's greatest players, including a world championship match. He did not lose during this period of time. He was very good-looking and charismatic, and he became, spent a lot of time drinking, gambling, hanging out with women, and enjoying his life as the world champion. And he made some very outrageous claims because there was no FIDE at that time, so there was no official way to determine who a world champion was. A world champion could pick and choose whoever he wanted to play against. So, Alekhine had a difficult time raising the money and meeting the parameters set by Capablanca, deliberately set to be very high. Finally, in 1927, Alekhine got his chance. He had never beaten Capablanca, so it was quite a shocker when he won the very first game of that World Championship match. The match took place over the course of, 4 months, and until the famous Karpov-Kasparov match of the 80s that was cancelled, and the change in the World Championship match format, this had been the longest World Championship ever before, and for the next 60 years afterwards. took place over the course of about 4 months, and it was supposed to be the first player to get 6 wins. So Alekhine ended up winning it because Capablanca didn't take him seriously, wasn't well prepared. Alekhine was an absolutely ingenious tactician and one of the greatest calculators who ever lived. In an age before computers, this guy would calculate lines 20, 25, 30 moves long, routinely over the board. He was a ferocious attacker, aggressive style, quite the contrary of Capablanca, who was a stodgy defensive player, positionally perfect. After the match, when Alekhine won, the previous friends became bitter rivals and they never spoke again. Capablanca hated Alekhine, and he tried many times to get a rematch, but Alekhine was certain to make sure that the parameters for him to get a rematch were just as outrageous as the ones that Capablanca had set up in the first place, and a rematch never took place. Alekhine ended up losing the match in 1935 against Max Uwe, who we'll look at next, and you can see them pictured up in the top right-hand corner. Max Uwe was basically a nobody and should have never really been a world champion, but Alekhine, much in the style of Capablanca, he liked to drink and he wasn't in very good condition physically. And he lost the match, so he had to re-win that match back in 1937 in a rematch, which he did. Now, Alekhine had not defected, but had left Russia and had moved to France with his Jewish wife, and they lived in a beautiful castle. At one point in time, World War II broke out while Alekhine was playing in the Olympiad in Buenos Aires, Argentina. Many of the world's top players never returned to Europe ever again, especially those of Jewish ancestry. People like Miguel Najdorf and very famous players of that era stayed and lived forever in Argentina, afraid to go back to Europe. Alekhine knew his Jewish wife was in France, and so he decided to go back and he fought in the French army. To no avail, the Germans ended up invading anyways. At one point in time, Alekhine collaborated with Nazi Germans after they ransacked his castle and threatened to put him and his wife in a concentration camp. So he collaborated with them. He played some tournaments set up by Nazis. So did other players, Bogolyubov and Keres and other guys of that era. But basically, he was at gunpoint: either collaborate with us or we're going to put you and your wife in a concentration camp. At one point in time, Alekhine passed away while physically sitting as the world champion. And that's the only time that has ever happened in history that a current sitting world champion passed away while they were holding that title. And if you look in the bottom right-hand corner here, you will see a picture of Alekhine. This is a so-called death picture. What happened was the autopsy said that he had choked on a piece of meat, a 3-inch long piece of meat that they found lodged in his windpipe. I've also heard the story that he had choked on a chicken bone. And you can see there that there's a chessboard set up, and so the rumor was that he was steadying a chess position and leaned back in his chair and choked on some meat. But if you look at that position, all the pieces are set up on their original squares. So it looks like a prop. It looks like somebody just put that chessboard there after the fact. And also, if you look on the plates, there's no food. Where is the food? How could he, did he choke on the very last piece of meat that he ate with no napkins? So this is clearly a setup picture. So that started some rumors that maybe like some sort of a French death squad had killed him for collaborating with the Nazis. Or perhaps his quote-unquote defection or his leaving the Soviet Union made people want to prevent him from winning a match against Russian Mikhail Botvinnik, who also had some enemies in the KGB, and maybe just some people just didn't want that match to take place. So there's been a lot of like rumors and conspiracy theories, and nobody knows exactly for certain how Alexander Alekhine died. But what happened was they arranged a match between the top 5 or 6 players in the world, one of whom was Reuben Fine, who declined to play for reasons that nobody knows why yet. But the top players in the world were organized together to play in a tournament, and the winner of that tournament would be crowned the world champion. The winner of that tournament was Mikhail Botvinnik, who would go on to lose the title twice more and then regain it, thus becoming the only 3-time world champion in the history of chess. We're going to take a look at Max Uwe and Mikhail Botvinnik on my next post-game show tomorrow. And that, folks, ladies and gentlemen, is the history of Alexander Alekhine. Yeah, Kappa was a good-looking young guy for sure, man. He was a real popular with the ladies, and had he not been so careless with Alekhine, it's assumed that he would have won easily. Same thing with Alekhine versus Max Uwe. They just were careless. Hey, Halvard, how's it going, man? Yeah, I mean, you know, so the era we're talking about, Vertwitch, was specifically the Second World War, so, you know, that was a particularly difficult time for the Jewish community, and so that's why there was all that drama and stuff. This is just to let you know how much drama there is in the history. This is not, I'm not making this up, guys. These are the stories of the real linear world champions. That was Alexander Alekhine, the 4th linear world champion. Max Uwe would have been the 5th, and then the 6th was Mikhail Botvinnik, and we'll take a look at both of those, because Max Uwe only held that title for 2 years, and he went on to basically found FIDE. He was basically one of the founding members of FIDE. And the official awarding of Grandmaster titles, the official World Championship cycle, and then the ratings that took place after that. Yeah, if that's true, but we don't know for sure. That's just the story. So that's the interesting history, and we'll look into all of the world champions leading up to the Linear World Championship right now of Magnus Carlsen versus Fabi Caruana. So let's get back into this game, guys. So the move played was Queen to C7. We're on move 15. It's already looking like some trade-offs are going to take place. Queen takes and pawn takes, and then came the move Knight to C6. It's possible that Knight C6 is slow. It's possible that he played Knight to C6 with the intention of stopping D4 or hopping into that square. The question is, after Knight to C6, Fabi played the move C3, and this was his big moment. If there was a moment for Fabi to strike, this was it, guys. The commentators that I believe this was the position they were talking about seemed to like the move D4, and I concur, although I might have chosen the move Rook to D1 first. But D4, striking in the center while you have a chance, this was Fabi's big opportunity. Thank you, Ray Clay. I appreciate that. The big opportunity was a chance to break this position open now before the king gets castled. A direct threat on the pin on the bishop and the knight. If pawn takes, I think again Rook to D1 is the move. Let's say, for example, castles. Knight takes, I'm threatening to take on E6. Knight takes and bishop takes. Bishop takes and rook takes. An alternative line is here you could possibly play something like, let's say, B3. Or you could possibly play rook to C8. But this is a difficult situation because you have to be careful that you don't find yourself in a situation where your pawns suddenly become very loose. And you might even end up down one pawn here. I don't know if Camel Clutcher is still in the house, if he has any insights into this position, but definitely D4 right now is a powerful break. Can't move the knight away. Can't move the bishop too far. Castling, I think, is wrong. Knight takes, bishop takes. I've got knight check. I don't like these lines for black. Pawn takes, knight takes, bishop takes. Whoops, sorry. Pawn takes, rook to d1, castles, knight takes, bishop takes. Let's say b3. Let's say b3. I'm wondering if c3 is possible. And I'll tell you something else. Rook c8 doesn't work because I've got bishop b6. Now he's going to be tied down with like bishop to f6. And I'm just going to continue on my merry little way. Yeah, this is a good position for white. Let's see what Mr. Silicon thinks. Matt still thinks he's got drawing chances. That sucks. I really thought this was a good line for white. So if he plays rook to here, does he at least agree with bishop to b6? It's okay, bishop to b6 is winning. Why is that? Why does he want to do that instead of here? He just wants to trade things off? Oh, I see. Okay, so he pulls up here. Okay, so he likes to do this one first. Wow! So he still goes ahead and puts that rook down there anyways. Instead, as an alternative, on rook to e5 and rook check, king forward. I see. If knight to here, you can't take this because of rook takes rook. Oh my gosh, Gian Canty just came in and he cheered 200 bits, dude. What? Dude, man, thank you so much, Canty. What is up, man? Canty, verified Twitter account, the man of 1 million emotes. Thank you so much, man. That's really kind of you. I really appreciate that so much. I don't know if you've noticed, this is the first person I've had in the chat that has this badge, but there's this new VIP badge. I've never seen it before. I don't know if it's brand new or if I just somehow only came up with the parameters to get that now. But anyways, you see there that GM Canty is my first VIP in the chat. I don't know how to make mod and VIP at the same time. And I actually thought GM Canty was a mod. I would put you as a mod if you preferred. But at any rate, man, we got the VIP badge there for people who are friends of the show. And that allows you to do whatever you want. I mean, you can post links or caps or anything, even if it's like follower and sub mode only, and you're not a sub, you still can keep on typing. You get like basically unlimited access to do whatever you want as a participant of the show because you're a VIP. So there you go, folks. You can't do both. Yeah, that's what I thought, because that was the only way I was able to get that VIP was to have one or the other. Like, it wouldn't let me do both, so hopefully that will fix that in the future. But anyway, we got GM Canty, folks, VIP in the house. Boom, we're in here. Let's do this. So we're looking at this game from today, this Carlsen versus Fabiano, and this was the question. Is this move slow? Is knight to c6 slow? Does it allow for the possibility of d4? And actually, okay, so I've let the computer on, and it does like my move, but rook to d1. This is the move that I saw over the board. Now, normally in these lines, when I'm playing a Rosalimo or a Moscow, I do like to play c3 and d4. But the reason why I don't like c3 in this line is because you're blocking your own bishop. You're blocking your own bishop, and then even later on, if you're able to get this pawn on d4 safely, it can never move because your own bishop, you've pinned your own bishop. So that's why I like this move d4 either immediately or playing rook to d1, which is my concept, and then playing d4. I was late coming in on the commentators. Maybe Canty can give some insight into this, or some of you guys have some ideas, but I don't know if maybe rook to d1 is too slow. Whoops. maybe rook to d1 is too slow, and that's what I wondered about. But if there was a moment for Caruana to strike, this has got to be the moment. So my idea was, let's say if pawn takes, or the other way around, and then rook to d1, castles, knight takes, bishop takes. So here, I feel like rook c8 is not working. Rook c8 doesn't work, I don't think, because of bishop to b6. Okay? So now that leaves moves like b3, bishop to h6. What other options are there here? Because this is still going to allow for bishop to b6. If he just simply takes this and rook takes, I mean, is this enough for like, does white have a good position here? Let's see what the computer, the computer likes white here. White's up a pawn and he's threatening to go up more pawns. So if there was a chance, that had to be it, guys. Let's take a look. I'm just going to give it one more minute, see what you guys have to say in the chat. And Chesspatzer Serbia's in the house. What's up, Chesspatzer Serbia? He says, I agree. If I played this game from the position, I would certainly beat poor Magnus. Yeah, I mean, that's the dream, isn't it? That's the dream, isn't it? But if there was a chance to strike, this had to have been the moment. Maybe there was none. Maybe there was never a time to strike. If you guys have those GM Canty emotes, throw them in the air, man. I like to bring some love for the streamers that come in and hang out on my show. So, I mean, I don't know if the move c3 signifies passivity, because he is still threatening to come in that d4 square. It might have just been a minor inaccuracy, or maybe it really is the best move, and we're going to find out in a minute because I'm going to turn on the engine. But if there was a moment to strike, this has got to be it, guys. Dream on till your dreams come true. Sure, why not, man? What is there besides dreams, man? Will Wolf. There you go, Will Wolf. I don't know where those are actually... That's not a move. Canty has an emote for every occasion, guys. Okay, we're going to turn on the computer. We're going to see what the computer says. Oh, yeah, we already did this, and it did say rook to d1. This is the move that I had over the board when I first saw this position, but I'm not really convinced. I feel like maybe it's kind of slow again. The idea that the reason why I liked rook to d1 instead of the d4 move was because it still likes this move. I thought this move wasn't going to work anymore because of d4. Oh, my God. What? I thought that this was just losing. But it suggests that black can play here. The idea is if the pawn push, he's got pawn takes c2. You guys seeing this line? What happens if pawn takes? King takes? You can't play king here because of this. You guys seeing this stuff? He might still be able to protect it and play bishop to h6, but I'm thinking maybe here he just plays this. And now on this we've got here. And then, no, we can't do that. That's not a check. So we do have to play, we have to take this one. And then we'll do pawn takes. And then we've got this, right? But what's this position? This position isn't doing anything. Oh man, I thought that he couldn't get away with king d7 in that line. I'm really surprised to see that that's a move. It does call c3 an inaccuracy. That's just what the computer here is saying. I don't know if that's really true or not. Don't put too much stock into the computer when you're looking at world champion games. These guys understand these positions a lot better than any computer. The computer just uses brute force. So, so it's one of these moves. If there was something here, it was got to be one of those moves. I said that was my dream to beat Carlsen. No, I never said that, Chespatzer Serbia. I never said any such thing. I was just making a joke when you said if you were playing this position, you would certainly beat poor little Magnus, which is a ridiculous statement. Obviously, Magnus Carlsen, one of the best players in the world, but I'm pointing out that if there was a point in time in this game to make some progress, this has got to be it, right? With d4. Chespatzer Serbia says Svidler recommended rook to d1 during the game. I was kind of hoping Camel Clutcher was going to be in here because he watches those Svidler and Grischuk. I usually just watch the chess.com, and plus I came in an hour and a half late, so I was pretty far behind. But now realizing that he can get away with this kind of a concept with possibly b3, the idea is that if the pawn takes and the bishop takes, and then there's no more pin, there's no more or fork, I should say, on d5. So if that's playable, then maybe this whole line is just garbage. I mean, I just thought he was going to castle. I just thought he was going to castle and play like, you know, it was just going to transpose into the other line, basically. Anyways, c3 got played. Let's see how it goes. So now he can play this more safely. He's going to just come over here and try to scoop up that pawn. Pawn takes, rook over. I'm sure this is a good move. I'm sure this is a good move. The move played was bishop to c3, which is probably right. One problem I have with this move is I'm playing this. I don't know. It's kind of like, have you ever heard the term a half tempo? Have you ever heard of a half tempo? I wondered. It's debatable. It's just an idea. Okay, I don't know if it's right or not. But if the pawn pushes. If the rook takes, then he's just wasted a move and there's no more. It's a way of protecting the bishop. And if the king takes, then the king is one square further away from the center. Now, here's the trade-off. The other possibility is by playing a move like what he played, which is bishop to c3. Now, if black wants to take that, he has to physically waste a move, giving the tempo back to white so that now it's white's move. So the question for me was, what was more important, to have your king one closer to the center of the board or to have that half tempo? But it was something I wondered, whether pushing that pawn for a queen was interesting here or not. A move that comes with a tempo on a piece is a move that gains a tempo by attacking that piece. For example, in the Sicilian defense, e4, d5, e takes, queen takes, knight c3 comes with a tempo on the queen. The knight attacks black's queen, forcing it up against. Yeah, so you're giving like a textbook definition of what the move tempo is.
No obstacle that you cannot overcome, no problem that you cannot solve, and no goal that you cannot achieve by applying your mind.
Correct. So that's what I'm saying is it better to pull the king away to one square further back, but now I don't have to waste a move to gain that pawn? Or is it better to play another move, forcing me to take this and giving you the move back? It's I don't really know how to describe it properly. I guarantee you, go watch. I've seen him before say it. Magnus Carlsen himself will talk about half tempos, but everybody knows the concept of the half tempo exists. I just don't know how to describe it exactly. It's like you're gaining a tempo, but it's only temporary. You're going to have to give it back, but possibly the fact that you're temporarily gaining that half tempo, you can do something with it just for a move or something before having to give the tempo back. That's kind of what I'm getting at with a half tempo. So it's a weird concept, but it's a thing that exists, and it existed in this position where there was the possibility of pushing that pawn for a queen. Okay, so bishop to c3 was played. The king moves over to c7. And then comes, boo, boo, where's Rufus shaking his fist wildly, boo, you know, but Ben Fine goes, boo. All right, I've even got a boo emote. Let's put it up. Let's put it up for Fabi, the boo emote. I'm sorry, Fabi, but you forced me. You forced my hand. Okay. D3, man. Come on, dude. Come on. You play this very interesting line. A couple moves ago, we were talking about cracking the position open with D4, and then you throw in C3 and now D3. It's like, he's back into his turtle shell. Fabi is back in his turtle shell, and he's just going to keep his position solid, and he's just going to wheedle around back on the top, back 3 rows, not do anything too aggressive, and just get an easy draw. Man, oh man, this is a disappointing move, guys. This is a disappointing move. So King 2, I think this is a bad move. That's kind of a stupid move to me. I mean, obviously, I know Carlsen's way better, and I know there's all kinds of stuff he's seeing that I don't. I know it's not actually a bad move, but it sure looks like a stupid move to me. I don't understand what he's trying to do here. That piece can be chased so easily from that square. And I just don't know where he thinks he's going. Is he planning to come up and take that b-pawn, which ultimately he did? It just looks like a stupid plan to me. I mean, I don't really know what the alternative is here. F6 maybe, and then try to get this bishop into the game somewheres. But why would you use your king? Why would you put your king up there between all those pieces? So king to b6, bishop to d2. This is a clever little move. He's going to regroup his bishop to e3. The rook moves over. It looks on first inspection like he's losing a pawn. Bishop to e3. The commentators were looking at the move knight to c3 here, and I don't know if it's going to change anything. I don't really know what happens here. If rook takes, does he play bishop to here? And then like this or something? I don't really know what happens. I'm not sure if I would want to do that right away. We got Nova Rhythm making a splash on the Trout Show. What's up, Nova? How you doing? Welcome to the Trout Show. Have some Timbits. Everybody on the Trout Show gets some Timbits. And there they are, the Timbits. What are Timbits, you might wonder? If you're not from Canada, well, they're donut holes. They're little miniature donut holes, and they're filled with jelly and such. Jam. Jammy jam. And nice little things like that. Timbits. There you go. Welcome to the show. Vertwitch asks, why am I not VIP? That's a good question. You want to be a VIP, Vertwitch? We could probably put you on a VIP. Were you like a sub yesterday? Like, were you a sub and then like your name was not on the list? Because all the subs and all of the mods and stuff, I think, or most of them anyways, I didn't put on VIP unless they were like a title player or something. I just mostly sub VIP'd the title players, but I do have a couple of extra slots. We'll move it around a little bit. Make sure everyone feels important. So rook to d8, bishop to e3, king to b5. I don't know what this king is doing, man. I mean, it turned out that everything was fine for black, but I wouldn't want to play like this. I'd be scared out of my pants to play like this. King to b5? Come on, dude. Knight to c3, king takes. Look at this move. I would never come up with a plan like this. I would never come up with a plan like this, and I can't believe that it works. First of all, I'm curious if there was a way to get out of it. I suppose if he goes back, there's just going to be the check again. And of course, if you come over this way, well, that's probably not going to work out good for you. But he's just giving up 2 pawns. Is this how the game went? I believe it is. Oh, yeah. And then he checked. So he's going to scoop the B pawn, and then it's just going to be like a typical Fabi bad pawn structure, but he has a fortress on the first 3 rows. And so he can just kind of turtle. He actually played pretty robust in this endgame to make sure it was a draw. The king to... I'm not sure if this was the best move either. Another possibility was he could have played king to a4. On king to a4 and rook takes, he's got rook to b5. That's an interesting possibility, because now the rook can't check over here, and there's a back rank he's got to watch out for. So it forces a trade. Is the trade of rooks any better? I mean, what does black have? That weak d-pawn? I don't really see what the problem is. He's probably just going to move his king over or something like that. I don't really know what happens next, but the question was just whether it was better to keep the rooks on or not. But there was a possibility that he could have done that and traded rooks if he had wanted to. Maybe he just repeats the position or something. I don't know. Maybe that didn't work, but... So he plays this king to c3 line. Cardinalga, how you doing, man? Ray Clay says Tim Bits for everyone. Of course, man. Tim Bits for everyone. I haven't seen a bad move, so I can't really give you a good fish slap move here, Ray Clay. You know? Ray Clay likes the fish slap. Rook takes, and then another fine move by Carlsen. Knight to d8. You know, this is... these kinds of moves, people. I mean, these small little tiny, like, accuracies... This is why these guys are the best players in the world. This is a beautiful, beautiful move. Simultaneously attacking the rook and defending the f-pawn. So he's going to be able to scoop this d-pawn now. And, of course, Magnus had this plan from a while ago. But I didn't see it until just this moment. Like just at the moment when this move was played. So, knight to d8, very nice. Rook check, king takes. And now king over to f1, another exquisite little defensive move. So white has completely trapped this king into this little corner. His only move now is here, so there's actually mating nets. Black has to be careful. Of course, he's aware of it. He's not going to keep his pieces where they are. He plays the move h5. He doesn't want to have a move like, He doesn't want to have a move like g4 coming in, and then like maybe knight to here and like check or something. I don't know. He doesn't want to like, you know, get checkmated in the middle of the board like a fish. So h5, h3, still threatening g4. Basically, g4 is the cutting off the f5 square from the escape for this king. So, to give you an example of how quickly things can go wrong, let's say if black decides, well, I want to get rid of that knight right now. Whoops, knight to e1, checkmate. Thank you very much. Good night. Okay, so that's how quickly things can go south in this position for black because of the way the white has played this. Very interesting. How these guys know these positions in advance is totally out of my mind. Like, I cannot conceive how they're able to do this. h3, a brilliant move. He knows that Magnus is not going to fall for the checkmate, but still, it forces black to either make some space, or attack this square, or do something. He's got to do something. This bishop is pinned. You know, the pawn's tied down to the defense of the bishop. So it's forcing black to make moves. So he decides to run away. Now here, if the move g4 takes place, he's got king takes f3. So that takes that possibility away. So the knight checks. The king is going to come to f5, and now he's just going to collect this pawn for free. Knight takes and rook takes, threatening the bishop, only move his bishop to f6. It looks very scary with moves like g4 coming, but the king can just simply come back to e6. As scary as it looks, there is nothing here, and watch me turn on Mr. Silicon. There you go, folks. Utter, complete, dead draw. And I mean a dead draw. There is nothing here, and neither side can make progress. Is that what he actually played? He did play g4, king back to e6, rook to a7, bishop to d8, pawn takes. Oh, I didn't realize that this game kept on going. Pawn takes and pawn takes. Rook over to h7. The pawn push, that's a clever little move. Is this what happened? I don't know if this actually happened or not, guys. This might be analysis or something like that, I don't know. Did this happen? Bishop, rook, bishop, rook, bishop, rook. I think this is just analysis. I'm pretty sure that the game ended. I'm pretty sure the game ended right here on bishop to f6. I believe this was the last move played. Maybe someone can confirm that for me. But I believe that was the last move played. There's nothing here. There's absolutely nothing here. So there you have it, folks. There is your Game 5 of the World Chess Championship 2018. Fabiano Caruana versus Magnus Carlsen.